Good morning, everyone. I'm in South Italy again for Christmas. I hope the sound is okay here. Fireworks. I hope the sound is okay here because I actually have this place in the South where I can come and kind of be by myself. So hopefully it's not too echoey because there's not that much furniture just yet. Yeah, it is a little echoey. Sorry for that. Otherwise, I had to be like in the house with my daughter and my mother-in-law and everybody yelling and talking. So I opted for this. Anyways, it's not that cold here, but the house was. So I did put a fire on, and now I'm like, oh my God, it's so loud. It's crackling so loud, and I'm kind of scared it's gonna like leap and burn my hair. Hopefully nothing bad like that happens, but if it does, it'll be very entertaining for you. Anyways, so I read through the whole book, The Easy Way to Stop Smoking by Allen Carr. A lot of people who want to stop smoking perhaps know a little bit about this book or heard about this book because it's been pretty famous worldwide and has been very successful in helping a lot of people, which is great. I did hear about this book a really, really long time ago and kind of just like put it in the back of my mind for like some future day if I needed it. So when the time came where I really want to stop smoking, I thought, okay, we're going to read that book. And after kind of kicking the habit of, like binge eating and sugar and all of the, highly processed foods. Oh my God, so loud. So all of the processed foods that I was so addicted to, after kind of beating that habit, I thought, okay, I can move to the cigarettes now. And it was interesting to see how similar the psychology was in this book compared to what I had been doing for my diet. Now, for those of you who've clicked on this video because you were curious about the book does start off promising a lot. So it does say, it sounds like a miracle. It sounds too good to be true. Like, read this book and you're going to quit smoking. And I think as soon as I read, started reading those first few sentences, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not reading this book then, because any smoker knows that if you're reading that, you hold on to your smoking so much that you don't even want to get through that book. And the book even says, do not stop smoking until you've read this book. And so you want to read it real slow. I read it in, I'll say a day, because I read 90% of it in a day, and then the other 10% the day before. So I started reading it, but I wasn't able to keep going. And actually on my trip to the South, I finished the whole book. So is this a miracle book? Short answer, yes and no. So if you're going to read this book, you need to read it with an open mind. You need to read it actually wanting to stop smoking. So if I don't want to stop smoking, I'm not going to stop smoking. And this book is not going to convince someone who doesn't want to stop smoking to stop smoking. So we'll be clear about that. People who are going to read this book who are scared that it's going to make them stop, it's not. It's, if you want to smoke and you have no intention of stopping, you can read this book and keep smoking. That's the truth. The other thing is, if you're somebody who's if you're a hardhead, you can read this book and argue every single point all the way through and be a fool and keep smoking and be a hardhead. And this book will not work for you. For those of us who are trying to change, looking to change, and looking for wisdom to change our minds, you can read this book and quit smoking 100%. What this book is doing is helping you to change your mind and find a new narrative, to identify the root causes, you might say, the thoughts you have, to root those out and replace them with new thoughts. Not the entire book is going to be true or be relevant to every single smoker, but you can easily go through the whole book and find the things that pertain to you, the things that you need to change in your own way of thinking if you want to quit smoking. And of course, it also guides you through the difficulties you might encounter once you do quit smoking. The parts about the book that really gripped me were, one, the author's own experiences about quitting smoking. So when he quit smoking, he started having interesting and unexpected results and benefits. So small things that he hadn't noticed before were getting better. Things that he didn't expect were correlated to the smoking. So I find that super interesting because that is a lot my experience with diets or with eating. Like when I change what I eat, a lot of things that I didn't expect were changing. Small things, like for example, I didn't get any dandruff. Like when I was eating healthily, like my week would go by where I, have to wash my hair again or whatever. And I had no dandruff. It was like completely clean still. So that was interesting. I thought that was weird, and it was very consistent until I would go back to my old diet. So I'm back to that again, where I feel like my hair is just always clean. So it's super interesting. Little things like how your mouth tastes or how your teeth feel, like they're always smooth and clean, even like first thing in the morning or after a meal, everything feels very smooth and clean all the time. Waking up in the morning, even like my eyes, sometimes when you wake up and they feel kind of gritty, like I wake up and my eyes don't feel like that, they just feel normal. So I was like, oh, that's interesting, right? Diet changes so many things that you wouldn't have expected. So when he had that experience with the smoking, I thought, oh, okay, I need to get on this, because there were certain small things, mostly to do with my breathing, throat, and a little tiny bit of coughing, my nose, that weren't changing with the diet that I expected to change but didn't. And I think that was the smoking. So I'm hoping to have those same experiences where maybe those like last final things that bothered me would kind of correct themselves. And for me personally, that's a big motivation, because health in my body is a very important thing. Another thing in the book that he talks a lot about was the social aspect of smoking. So you see other people smoke and you want to be smoking with them, or like if you're with other people who are not smoking and you're an ex-smoker, you tend to want to just light one yourself as well, like you're with all these people smoking, and it's like you have nothing to do with your hands, and you're just watching them, like, okay, well, I might as well light one too. It's this whole weird thing. So I get the social aspect is a lot like the food, like you're with a bunch of people and they're all doing that thing, so you want to do that thing with them. And I think there's a difference in Italy compared to, I think in the States and Canada, people are not smoking as much anymore. But in my own experience, I find that people still smoke a lot. So most people smoke. It's not as much of a stigma. They don't like to smoke inside, but it's quite a common thing for everybody to head outside for a cigarette or to be at somebody's house, like for Christmas, for Christmas dinner. And then, there's a point where we'll close the kitchen door and everybody, maybe open a window, and everybody will have a cigarette while we play a game or something. The third thing that really resounded to me was where he talked about the mental drag. I mean, we don't consider smoking to be like alcohol or like heavy drugs, the same way that we haven't considered food to be like alcohol or like heavy drugs. Some foods, not all foods. So when he explained how, like the cigarette at the very least interrupts your peace and it distracts you. So you'll be trying to do something. It's, oh, well, let's just have a cigarette first. Or, okay, well, now I deserve a cigarette because I finished this. And before I start the next thing, I should get a cigarette. Or, you'll be doing a job and like you'll hit a hard point and like, okay, I'm going to have a cigarette so that it will help me. And you have that mental, and I will argue spiritual crutch. So it holds you back from being able to push through, from being able to think correctly, from being efficient in your life. And the author argues from a scientific point of view that the nicotine actually does interrupt clarity of mind, which I wouldn't doubt, because if you're going to put something, it rings true to me that if you're going to put a foreign substance into your body that was not meant to be there, it's going to do things besides just lung cancer. And we all know that, you know, as smokers, the last thing that motivates you to stop smoking is some like maybe consequence in 100 years, like maybe when you're 50. And when you're a teenager, 50 sounds like forever. Maybe when you're 50, maybe when you're 80, maybe not at all, because we all have that uncle who lived to 100 and smoked like a chimney, right? So we all think that those consequences in the far off future are highly unlikely to happen to us. And if they do, that's so far down the line, we really don't care. We're not, you know, that's the excuse of so many smokers as well. Like, I'm going to live for the moment. I'm not going to, you know, be afraid of 100 years from now. So that has never done any good in deterring us from smoking. I needed more than that. And the idea of not having clarity of mind, of not being able to be efficient in life, of not being able to be productive and not being able to do the things I was called to do on this earth makes me feel like, okay, that cigarette has to be gone. So I have way more motivation besides just health, which is also a big motivation for me because it's a big deal for me, but my mental clarity even more. Not having your mind, that's first. And when we speak of health being the most important thing, mental health is even more important, I think. Obviously, you can suffer a lot without physical health. I'm not to underplay that at all, because, you know, we need physical health as well. But when it comes to mental health, you don't have mental health, you're not even yourself anymore. And I think that that is part of what the cigarette does. And that's, I've never looked at it that way. The other big thing that was very similar to what I do in diet, the book talked about no substitutes. That's interesting because, you know, in the professional world, they will always give you substitutes. But in the psychological and the spiritual world, you need to get rid of the root problem. So the root problem is what is the thing that is causing you to even have that crutch in the first place. Using something else as a substitute is not the way out, and that's, you know, part of the reason why so many people stop smoking and then they like lean on eating. So that was interesting because, you know, in the past I did do this video about keto desserts and how I think keto desserts are a kind of pitfall. So it's a slippery slope. So it's not solving anything for us. We need our taste buds to come back to what is natural for our bodies. I'm going to read this like one sentence where he says, when you feel physically and mentally strong, you can enjoy the highs and handle the lows. And that was talking about how when we reach for that cigarette in the moment of stress, right? You think that, okay, that cigarette's going to help me calm down. It's going to help me not be stressed out. It's going to help me to handle this situation better. And that's what happened to me when I came south last time, because I had quit for like 3 weeks, and then I came south and I thought, okay, this is too hard. This whole situation is too hard. So I'm going to smoke. It's going to make me feel calmer, a little less bored, and I'm going to be able to handle this better. It really just was giving me something to do, feeding that nervous energy when I didn't know what else to do with myself. So that's an excuse that we use a lot, but I like what he said because it gives that challenge. Like, if you're physically strong, if you're mentally strong, you can handle those situations without that. The thing about me eating the way I eat, I get it a lot where people are like, well, that's very extreme. Like, you know, that's too much. Like, everything in moderation. And I've heard that so many times. But when I'm, you know, first of all, I don't feel extreme in the sense that I don't feel deprived of anything anymore. The cravings are gone. I'm calmer. I'm happier. I'm more clear. I can get things done. I think that everything in moderation can be a lie, the same as me telling myself that 1 or 2 cigarettes a day was not a big deal. Those little things in moderation can be much sneakier than, you know, the chain smoker. Those little subtle things can get you in real trouble and be affecting you really subtly, to the point that you don't remember the difference between doing them and not doing them. I just today came off a 7 day coffee fast. So I wanted, and the reason I did this wasn't because I thought coffee was bad for me. It's not, that's not the point. I was using coffee as a crutch. And when that came on my radar that this coffee is being a crutch for me changing how I eat, for me to, I don't know, fast longer or to avoid overeating, just have some coffee because it will help me to, have something on my mouth. It's a nervous thing. Like my nerves, I'm nervous. So I'm going to drink coffee. It will calm me down or give me something to do. So that's why I was doing it. And that's the reason why I thought we need to fast this. I do this partly because I'm curious. I want to see like what happens when I don't have coffee for 7 days. How do I feel? Is something different? I want to see what happens. And in my 7 days, the difference has been not huge. I'm calmer and I'm more tired. Um, and it hasn't been a bad tired. It's a weird tired. I even like had a nap, but like, so the difference has been, it's not an exhausted tired. Okay, so I wake up and I was having green tea instead. And around lunchtime, whether I eat or not, I'm just kind of like sitting there, like kind of like half, like I think I'll just close my eyes and like kind of just relax for like 10 minutes kind of thing. And then like I went on with my day and so forth. And 9 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 9:30, 10, forget it. By 10, I'm like dead. I'm gone. I'm just falling asleep super early. So I went to sleep so early all through the week. And I went to sleep feeling very relaxed. And the relaxed feeling that I had was very similar to how you feel like after massage, that kind of tired. It wasn't like a exhausted, like I can't stay awake anymore kind of tired, but it was like, oh, I'm gonna like lay down and this is nice. Like it was a nice tired. So I did notice that. I will not be I will not be continuing with this fast of coffee, but I think I'm going to try to keep it to like my 1 cup in the morning. Let's try to keep it at that. And once in a while, I might take it out for a day or two or whatever and have green tea in the morning instead of coffee, like choose some days where I don't have it. But the point was that if I notice that something is going to start being a crutch to me and I'm going to start abusing it, I'm going to bring it back. And I think that's part of the reason why God wants us to fast, is because if you're going to start putting something before him meaning before his purpose for you or before what you should be doing, then take it out. The fasting helps you to regulate to regulate it again, I guess. Yeah, to regulate it again. It helps you to bring it back to where it's supposed to be. And obviously we are supposed to eat. We're supposed to eat to live, but fasting helps us to calm things back down, make sure that we keep our eating regular. So yes, dependency. I need to be dependent only on God. I cannot be dependent on any substance, on any food, whether that be a cigarette, a coffee, or a drink, or some alcohol, or some food, any type of food. Another thing that I read in the book that I really liked, this was probably my favorite sentence in the whole book, where it said, intelligent people fall for confidence tricks, but it is only a fool who, having once found out about the trick, goes on to kidding himself. So I love that, because while I'm reading through the book, part of me is saying, well, like these are just tricky ways of, trying to, get out of smoking, or tricky ways of, tricking your own mind into not smoking, by telling yourself these things. But I think that only a fool will take those things, call them tricks, and continue smoking and tell himself the lies in order to continue smoking. So it's interesting that he put it that way, because in that sentence, it sounded very much like what the Bible says about how people would call wise men fools, and fools wise men. Also, just the idea of repeating something to yourself over and over and over, changing the narrative that is in your mind made sense to me, because I'm thinking that's exactly what the Bible tells us to do: renew your mind. So you're supposed to take out the thoughts that don't serve you, take out those thoughts that, those lies that are in your mind that are leading you to do these things, and change them, exchange them for something else. And that's what the renewing of your mind is. The Bible also says that as a man thinketh, so he is. Last of all, the last thing that he does mention, which kind of concludes the book, where he talks about you do have to launch, you have to launch yourself in the end. So there isn't going to be like, don't wait for it. Don't wait for that like big moment where all of a sudden you're like, oh yes, like now I know that I can. No, you're going to have to jump at some point, so you're going to have to trust. And, this book is not, it's not a religious book, but it makes sense to me, where I think I'm just going to trust God. I'm going to pray. I'm going to trust God that I can do this thing, and that he will lead me. So I have to jump. I have to make the decision and jump and trust God that he will lead me out of it, the same way that I prayed and asked God and jumped when I started back on my ketogenic diet. And when I come face to face with any sort of temptation, praying and seeking out help from like-minded friends really helps a lot. I find just the words of, launch yourself. I find that just those words are very challenging, which is also something that motivates me, because you give me this challenge of like, okay, are you going to challenge yourself? Are you going to jump? Are you going to do the thing? And yeah, I am going to do the thing. I'm certainly going to do the thing, because I've come this far. So I'm definitely going to take that. I'm going to leap. I'm going to jump. I have things to do, and that cigarette is a part of the things that hold me back. So I'm going to pray, and I'm going to be reminded of the ways that the cigarette doesn't serve me. It doesn't serve me. It doesn't help me towards my goals of being healthy, and it doesn't align at all with the purpose I have in my life. So it's out with the cigarette. I can't say that I've, smoked my last cigarette where I had it and thought, this is it, I'm done, yay. I think there's a little more work that I need to do. And I'm not, and I think that it has to do with a little bit of studying and a little bit of rooting out the thoughts that are stopping me. So what are the thoughts that are still embedded? So I think that for me, that involves maybe skimming through the book another time, trying to pinpoint the things that I tell myself that are not true, and giving myself a little bit more motivation on the side of health and attaining that mental clarity and attaining the level of health that I'm after. I certainly feel more equipped to do that after reading the book. A lot of things make more sense to me. A lot of things are a little more clear to me. There's certainly, that fear of failure. So being afraid to start because you're scared that when you do start, you're gonna make a mistake and, like get back into it or whatever. If I happen to fail, I know that I'm missing something up here. My body is not doing what my mind is. Well, my body is always doing what my mind is telling it to do. So there's something else that's not working. So I'm gonna have to figure that out. Of course, I'd like to figure that out very soon, like right now, so that I can start my journey and already quit. But I can't say that day is right this minute. I think it's very soon, but I still have a little tiny bit of work to do. I'm also kind of afraid of being miserable, I guess, like when there's those moments where you want a cigarette and you can't. Yeah, I'm kind of afraid of being miserable. So that, I kind of had a thought like, well, what did God give you in those moments when you are miserable, or when you're feeling stressed out, or when you have a bad day or whatever? Like, what are the tools God gave you for that? So I obviously need to go and find that out, because those things might seem obvious to some people, but they're not that obvious to me. Like, what are the things that God gave me in order to be able to handle stress and situations? and bad days and emotions better than a cigarette. Um, Obviously, that is not working because it keeps me in this loop of anxiousness. Like, get your next cigarette, you know, like, and even when you don't want to smoke or you wish you could quit, you can't. So you're a slave to it. And then I'm sure that, you know, God gave us other tools. So I'm going to be looking a little bit into that for myself as well. And then I'm going to be kind of figuring out like what I can be telling myself, prepare myself for those. We have alarms and dogs. Okay. Sorry. I'm going to be asking myself what things I can tell myself in those situations where we are with other people, because it happens so often where you're in these social situations where everybody's lighting up a cigarette after dinner or after a drink or whatever. So in that situation, we're going to have to figure out what I'm going to tell myself. It's going to have to be convincing. So, I mean, it's in the book, but I'm going to have to work with my own mind a little bit more on that part. I hope that's encouraging to somebody. I definitely would, what's the word? Oh my gosh. Suggest? No, that's the wrong word. I'm translating from the Italian again. I would, what's the word? God. Anyways, suggest. There's a better word. I know it, but it's not coming to mind. I would say that reading it can be very helpful with figuring out the things that you're telling yourself that are not serving you well in quitting. And I would expect that to be much more successful than any, you know, nicotine replacement therapy or cutting it down slowly and any of that. I mean, yeah. So that's about it for today. I hope this video wasn't too long. It wasn't, I know it was kind of long, but whatever, it is what it is. There's going to be maybe one or two people out there who are interested in like quitting smoking or reading this book, and they'll want to know what it's about. So here you go. You know, I read a few points in it, my take on it. I think it's a great way of approaching addiction because it is very much similar to what I've done with the food, and I feel very much free from the food addiction at this point in life. I don't feel that I will ever go back to eating a pizza or, you know, craving the piece of cake. I feel very solid in that. I feel very calm about it. So, yeah, great book. Work to do. That's about it. There's a little bit of work to do. Requires a little bit of work, requires a little bit of courage, requires renewing of your own mind and being open-minded and accepting the truths that are in this book. If you're going to reject all the truth and argue every point, it's not going to work for you. But if you truly want to quit smoking, definitely a book to read. Oh, and you know, Merry Christmas, because tomorrow's Christmas Eve. When I see you in my next video, I'll still be here, but I hope to be outside and not in the echoey house. I hope this wasn't so bad. I'm trying to talk like a little softly so it doesn't like, I don't even know, rimbalzare on all the walls. Sorry for the Italian insertion. Just somebody put the translation on the bottom. I can't remember right now. I hope you have a great Christmas, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.